2024 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. There are paper copies of the agenda by the door for anyone who's here in person, and the full packet is available online as always. We did not have a work session today, so first we'll start with our consent agenda, of which we have one item. Then we will move to general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues that are not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time, we need to have an orderly and efficient meeting. We apply some rules to public comment. We do our best to enforce the rules consistently without regard to point of view expressed by the speaker. And the first would be each speaker is limited to 3 minutes speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing. Individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. 3, all comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission. And 4, we reserve the right to mute any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during public comments not allowed. Please give your full name and address for the meeting minutes and address your comments up here to the Commission. Please know that comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the point of view of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comment on the spot, but if you'll leave your information with staff, we will try and get specific questions answered. After general public comment, we'll move to our regular agenda, of which we have 5 items. For each agenda item, we'll hear from staff or an applicant, followed by questions from the Commission, and then we will open up that item to public comment. Once public comments close, we'll bring it back to the Commission for further discussion and a vote. So lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and on our website. And so with that, we move to our consent agenda. Commissioners, we have one item. Would either of you like to pull this item from our consent agenda for further discussion?
No.
Is there anyone here in person who would like to pull an agenda item from our consent agenda? And seeing none, we have anyone online? Do not. Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda item 1.
Second.
Moved in second.
Aye.
Thank you. Of general public comment. Come on up and give us your name and address.
There we go. My name is Robert Elder. Our family owns a farm at 571 East 1000 Road in Willow Springs Township, Baldwin City. Anyway, reason I wanted to speak tonight is the Planning Commission just released their latest draft of the proposed wind regulations. And I want to publicly commend them for doing a great job on this. I feel they did a really good job listening to the residents of Douglas County and really synthesizing the various views and opinions of this issue. One of the recent issues that came up was the setback. Initially, it was going to be 1,500 feet from a turbine to a non-participating property line. But there were also a large number of individuals who felt that needed to be extended to 2,500 feet. And there were good arguments made both ways, and I can respect the opinions of both groups. And there was others who wanted this setback even farther. Well, I feel that the Planning Commission made the right decision by extending it from 1,500 to 2,500 feet. In recent months, we have seen wind turbines catch fire. We've seen some recent collapses in, I believe it's Missouri, Nebraska, and Colorado. We have had ice throws, which I know the turbines can be shut off so they won't spin or generate power during winter storms. But we've also seen the blades shatter too. And I know the commissioners have seen the shards from one of the turbines in Marshall County. And so having the extra setback, the 2,500 feet, is a good public safety measure. So when the issue comes before the commission, I would encourage you to adopt the regulations with the 2,500 foot setback. The turbines are an industrial feature, and like any other industrial site, we need protection for the general public. So in the name of public safety, thank you for considering the 2,500 feet, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Robert. Anyone else?
My name is Dr. Justin Spees. Throughout COVID, I opposed your guys' mask mandate that you all put in place, along with your bullshit limitations on how many people could gather, and also your social distancing policy. I've come in here and I've read articles that have come out about how ineffective masks are and how they were child abuse, and I want to read another article here tonight just to show how wrong you dumb shits were. This is from Yahoo News. This isn't from Fox News or Breitbart or InfoWars. This is from your guys' liberal trash. It says, Fauci to Congress, 6-foot social distancing guidance likely not based on data. In closed-door congressional testimony, former Chief White House medical advisor Anthony Fauci said that federal social distancing guidance during the pandemic was likely not based on any data, and conceded that the lab leak hypothesis of COVID-19's origins isn't a conspiracy theorist. So you all are the party of science and data, and talked about how, don't delete that, don't delete that. That'd be a felony if you delete that. That's on the record now. So you all talked about how you all are the party of science and that the data always changes. This wasn't even based on data, you dumb shits. Fauci's comments came during the second of 2 7-hour rounds of transcribed but non-public testimony before the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic. The repeated federal recommendation that people keep, why does my mic keep going out? People keep 6 feet of distance between themselves and others sort of just appeared, said Fauci, the former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, to lawmakers Wednesday, according to a statement released today from the committee's chairman, Representative Brad Winstrup. The Fed's oft-repeated 6-foot rule informed numerous state and local pandemic restrictions, including mask mandates and capacity limitations at businesses. Washington, D.C.'s mask mandate, for instance, required people to wear masks outside when one couldn't reliably keep 6 feet away from other people. Fauci also reportedly told lawmakers yesterday that the lab leak hypothesis was not a conspiracy theorist. Imagine my surprise. You all wanted to brand us as crazy conspiracy theory motherfuckers, but we were telling you the whole time how wrong you were. And all you did was just dismiss, mock, and ridicule. There's no way that we could have been right, right? There's no way. The party of science was right. Reminds me of a saying from Einstein. The thing about smart motherfuckers is that they look like crazy motherfuckers to stupid motherfuckers. You gonna have me escorted out of here now? Like you did before? Why not? What's changed? You guys get something in the mail? You guys get some certified mail that changes something?
You have any other public comment? Do we have anyone online? You can, are you moving them into the panel?
We're moving them over. Just give us a second. We have Lawrence Accountability to provide public comment. You have 3 minutes. I'm off mute. You're in the panel.
Is it my turn now?
Yes, you're in the panel. It's your turn.
Okay. First, then, I want to go ahead and make a suggestion that this whole thing about moving people into the panel on YouTube be done away with because it's very confusing on this end. I don't do this very often, but it is very confusing. Second, I want to put up that your meeting access to the Zoom link needs to be put in with the agenda. I joined on a cell phone to check and see if the meeting was active. I left and I couldn't find that meeting link anywhere on your agenda. I had to log back out and research commission to be able to find that. Next, now that Justin doesn't get arrested for saying free speech words that you don't happen to like, I can move on to other things. A few weeks ago, I came in and visited with Sarah Plinsky about issues with the Treatment and Recovery Center, a place called the Treatment and Recovery Center that doesn't actually do treatment or recovery services. All they do is refer people. During a contact with a homeless person who had a witness with them, the Treatment and Recovery Center staff called the police, escalated the situation, accused this individual of a battery that did not occur, and then tried to trespass them from the place that they're supposed to come get help. I want to encourage the commission right now to ask Sarah Plinsky to finalize this discussion and get back with me about what she's learned about the TRC. Next, I would like to ask that the county commission take some serious looks at the money you're giving Bert Nash, because the money that you're giving them without the proper oversight is being wasted. You have people that are supposed to be out on the street that are talking about how it's so cold, they're going to stay in today and they're not going to go out, and that Zoom is their friend and things like this. The narrative is changing, and you guys need to get on board with removing some of this funding that they're wasting for you, because that's really what's going on. You guys are funding people to sit in an office and do little to actually help solve the problem. Then you have a joint meeting that says it's going to take up to $100 million to solve homelessness. Come on, guys, let's be real. There's 450 homeless people around approximately in this area, and that's a high-end number. 450 divided by 100 million, what is that? It's a lot of fucking money is what it is. It does not take $100 million to end this problem. It takes you people recognizing the failures in the system and working to fix them. Please do that. That's all I got.
Do we have anyone else online? Okay, that will close general public comment and bring it back to our regular agenda. So first up, we have a recommendation for the merchant card services, and I think we're going to hear from Brooke.
Our finance manager, Brooke Sowers, here, as well as the county treasurer, Adam Raines.
Thank you, Sarah, and good evening, commissioners. So in October of 2023, we had two big contracts coming up at the end of January of this year. The first one that we're going to talk about is the merchant card services. Staff went out to RFP for this service in October. The scope was expanded just slightly to include some additional components for security. 8 bidders submitted proposals, and of those, 4 were interviewed, and staff recommends that we award this contract to Paymentus. We feel that this agency can provide the services as outlined in the RFP, and we would be happy to stand for any questions. You have all of the RFP materials in your packet. It is quite long, so we appreciate you guys taking the time to go through that. And then with this contract, the timing may vary on it as we move into implementation. We are switching from FIS, which is when you come and you make a payment to Douglas County, this is where we swipe your card. So we are no longer going to be using them, and so we do have a little bit of extra implementation time padded into this. So we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have about the process.
I, for one, am very glad for this team that had eyes on that and really evaluated those bids. Commissioners, do you have any specific questions? None? Okay, with that, do we have anyone in the public who would like to speak on this item? Or anyone online? No one. Okay, with that, closing public comment. Commissioners, any conversation?
Just looked like a lot of work, so thank you for doing that. Happy to make a motion unless there's more conversation to award a contract to the recommended bidder Paymentus and authorize staff to negotiate the contract and the county administrator to execute a contract with Paymentus for merchant card services.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I believe you get to stay also for the next item, which would be about the award for contract banking and card services.
Yes. So it kind of happened where both of these big financial contracts happened around the same time. And so also in October, we released the RFP the same day for banking services. And we have used US Bank since 2013. So we've been with them for a number of years. We decided to cast a net and throw it out and see what we got back. And we got 3 respondents to that RFP. Of the 3, we've determined that US Bank, we would like to continue with that bank. And staff would be happy to answer any questions if you guys have questions about that process or that selection.
Commissioners? This is also a public hearing item. Is there any member of the public would like to speak on this item tonight? Anyone online? All right, with that, bring it back to the commission.
Make a motion to award a contract to the recommended bidder, US Bank, and authorize staff to negotiate contracts with county administrator to execute contracts with US Bank for banking and procurement card services.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I know this was a lot of work.
Thank you, commissioners.
That brings us to a zoning and code item, and I will turn this over to Carl to kick us off.
Bring Carl into the panel. Looks like he's there. Thanks, Carl.
All right, good evening, commissioners. So before you is our applications for 3 temporary business use permits. This is to renew 3 existing sonic detection and ranging or SODAR units, all located within Marion Township. So to show you which permits these are, the permits before you are for, again, 3 different SODAR units, and I have the general locations and property owners listed there. And then I've also made a map showing where these are located within Marion Township. So the 2 Met Towers that are currently standing are in purple, and then the 3 SODAR units are in orange. The Met Tower on the McElhaney property is the next item on your agenda. So again, just to review, a SODAR unit, it's a meteorological instrument. It's mounted on a trailer and then placed out in the middle of a field, and it makes a chirping or a beeping noise and measures the return from those sound waves, and that gives you data on wind speed, direction, and turbulence of a specific site, and then that data is used to gauge the viability of a potential wind energy project. The surrounding land uses of each of these includes rural residential, but most of them are quite a ways from any nearby residents. The SODAR units were previously approved for a 1-year period by this board on February 1st, 2023. They were approved for that 1-year period, so the permits are expiring February 1st of this year, and that's why they're before you for renewal. There were a total of 4 that were approved last year. The one on the Breedlove property was approved, but no SODAR unit was ever installed there, so that permit is being allowed to expire, and the applicant indicated that they have no intention to place a SODAR unit there now. So before you with this agenda item, 3 out of the 6 meteorological devices in the county are being considered for renewal. So again, the applicant requesting renewal to allow the units to remain for the rest of a 5-year period. So staff is recommending approval for a 3-year period with the potential for a 1-year administrative extension. We did receive a complaint regarding one of the SODAR units. Last summer, staff was made aware that some neighboring residents of the SODAR unit on the Ray property was being disruptive, especially during calm conditions and at night. Staff visited several times and confirmed that we were able to hear the chirping noise from their property. So staff reached out to the applicant, and the applicant agreed to move the SODAR unit to a more isolated corner of the property, further away from any residences, we have reached out to that resident again to see if there's any difference, but we haven't heard back, and thus we're considering that this complaint is closed. For notification, this application is being processed as a temporary business use, meaning it comes directly to you and does not require planning commission consideration. The zoning code requires notification to be sent to property owners within a half mile. So a total of 51 letters were mailed out earlier this month to 42 Douglas County residents and 9 Franklin County residents, and we haven't received any comments since those letters went out. So with that, staff is recommending approval of these 3 temporary business use permits for a 3-year period with the possibility of a 1-year administrative extension with roughly similar conditions to what was approved a year ago, just modified to reflect that these are existing. With that, I'm available for any questions. I believe the applicant is on Zoom, and then the applicant's legal counsel is here tonight.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Carl, or should we hear from the applicant? Okay. Speaking on behalf of the applicant?
Well, we have also online, we should have John Flito. So I'm Alan Kloss Anderson with the Polsinelli Law Firm. Online is John Flito representing the applicant. Are you able to move him to the, great.
Yep, there he is.
John, you can come off mute and add to Carl's presentation if you'd like.
Good evening, commissioners. Could you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Hopefully you can see me now as well. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I believe planning staff did a great job describing the functionality of these devices. I can attest and confirm that they have been operating as intended, and we've been gathering data from them on wind speed. And all I have to add is that we consider the data we've been gathering from these devices being deployed to be valuable in our prospecting and project development process.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? This is a public hearing item. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone online who would like to?
We do. We're going to move Catherine Morgan into the panel. Catherine, you're in the panel. You can come off mute and provide your public comment.
Hello. Yes, so I am one of the property owners that is just north of the SODAR unit that is numbered that ends in 0004. It's there on East 150th Road. And there was a comment made by Mr. Bauer that, the SODAR unit, is placed in a way that it's far away from any nearby resident, but I would respectfully disagree. I can confirm, and I have video that shows that SODAR unit, even though it was placed, in the northwest corner of the property, that I could clearly hear that chirping of that SODAR unit at my home. So if the inference is where the SODAR unit is located is where a turbine may potentially be located, then I can tell you that most definitely a 1,500-foot setback or even a 2,500-foot setback for a wind turbine that's at least 600 feet, 300 to 600 feet tall, right just south of my property, would completely devalue my property. It would obstruct the view. I would have constant noise, light flickering, etc. And the fact that I could hear a small SODAR unit that was 1,500 feet from my house, can you imagine a large wind turbine? And I have video to prove this. It was taken earlier in 2023, but I would respectfully ask that the commission do not seek the renewal of this temporary business permit for this SODAR unit, especially for a 3-year contract. I would ask that it not be renewed. I have submitted multiple requests that no wind turbine be placed in this location. It would be too close to any property. Now, if the gentleman who owns the property that currently has this lease wants a wind turbine 500 feet behind his house, then he's more than welcome to do that. but not closer to other residences where we have no say from a non-participating owner perspective. So my request is that you do not renew the business unit permit, but if you are, definitely not for a 3-year period, but maybe for a 6-month or a 1-year period. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Is there anyone else online? With that, we're closing public comment and bringing it back. The applicant then is given an opportunity to respond. And specifically, can you answer any question between, is there a relationship between the placement of a SODAR and the placement of a future request for a turbine?
So and I'll let John add to this, but no. So where you'll see a SODAR unit is not necessarily even probably even likely to be where a turbine would be located. The siting the turbines is a different process. These are located to gather the atmospheric and other data in a broader area. So it's not meant for a single location. That's why there's only 4 of them, but what a wind project would obviously take up a larger area. So no, this is simply for these units that are meant for the atmospheric data, getting the weather data and all those different things, and they are not a specific location where a turbine would be located. And so nor would we obviously seeking today any approval for wind turbines. So that's obviously a conversation for another day if we can end up with ordinances that would allow those.
Yes, I will just echo Alan's sentiment that we have placed 4 to 5 units out across Douglas County for what would be a utility scale wind project over tens of thousands of acres. And so there isn't a correlation between where these units are placed and where a turbine might be placed in the future. As Alan mentioned, it's simply to gather broader data on wind speed and direction.
You. I think I'll bring it back to the commission. Do you have any questions for Carl or for the applicant? Any other thoughts or discussions?
I mean, I appreciate the clarification and just confirmation that the placement of the SODAR units doesn't have any direct correlation to theoretical wind turbines in the future, and also that there are different considerations in the process for a TBU and a CUP also. I think that if staff is recommending that this be renewed for a period of 3 years after having the 1-year review, that I feel comfortable with that, and knowing that they will be responsive to any complaints that they receive from neighboring property owners.
I'll just pick up on that, Commissioner Reed. This is Commissioner Kelly. I want to thank Carl and Tanya and your staff for going out when there was a complaint and listening for that. And I want to encourage the public not to get things merged together in some of these spaces. If there's an issue with a SODAR unit and you can hear it from your property, we would encourage you to call the planning department and we'll follow up on that as need be. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there will be a wind turbine there, and to keep these 2 applications separate. I know that that's hard, but thanks to Carl and for going out there and addressing that.
I also want to say to Carl, I appreciated the efforts that went into that. I first heard of the complaint that the SODAR unit could be heard from a home, and it was a friend of the person in question. And so it took a while to kind of get back to, did anyone have a contact information for them to contact them directly, and did they want to be contacted? So definitely it helps that whole process if folks who have a direct experience that needs to be known by us, if they would let planning know, so that we can hopefully solve that problem, which in this case it sounds like perhaps it was, but I know it's been very difficult to kind of get feedback from the particular person that was impacted. But I appreciate that you didn't let it drop, that you kept after it, and hopefully you've solved that problem for that particular homeowner. Any other thoughts from fellow commissioners or motions?
This is Commissioner Reed. I will move to approve 3 temporary business use permit request, ZTBU-2024-002-003 and I'm sorry, let me rewind because I messed that up a little bit. I move to approve 3 temporary business use permit requests, DTBU 2024-2, -3, and -4, to simplify it, to allow sonic detection and ranging units in Marion Township for a 3-year period from February 2, 2024 to February 2, 2027, with the possibility of a 1-year administrative extension, each with the conditions as listed in the staff memo.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We also have a second zoning and codes item, so I will turn it back to Carl.
Good evening again. Before you, we have a renewal request for a temporary business use permit for a meteorological evaluation tower, or a MET tower, on property just north of Globe. So for some background on this item, this is for a 60.26 meter or almost 198-foot temporary guy-wired tower. It doesn't include any lighting or any blinking lights. It's just under the FAA requirement of 200 feet in order to have, where it would be required to have those blinking lights. So these towers are used to collect data on weather patterns, similarly to a SODAR unit, to gauge the viability of a wind energy project. This application is for renewing a MET tower only and not for turbines or a wind energy project. And this is one of the 6 meteorological testing stations scattered around the county. Surrounding land uses for this tower include agriculture, rural residential, an art gallery, and there are also some other towers nearby. This MET tower was previously approved for a 1-year period by this board on February 1st of last year. The applicant is currently requesting renewal to allow it to remain for the rest of a 5-year period. A building permit was approved for the tower back in March of last year. We have received a complaint regarding this tower regarding disrupting internet service. We reached out to both the applicant and operator, as well as the nearby residents' internet service provider, Mercury Broadband, and neither of them had any reason to believe that the MET tower is causing any disturbance. To give you an idea of the location, this is about a half-mile north of Globe. These are the building plans, giving you an idea of how the MET tower is constructed. And again, this is being processed as a temporary business use, coming straight before you, not requiring planning commission consideration. Letters were sent out to property owners within half a mile, and a total of 12 letters were mailed out earlier this month. We haven't received any comments since those letters went out. And with that, staff is recommending approval for a 3-year period with the possibility of a 1-year administrative extension with the same conditions as approved a year ago, except amended to recognize that this is an existing tower. With that, I'm available for any questions, and the applicant and legal counsel are here as well.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Carl first? Okay, we can hear from the applicant.
Again, Alan Anderson with Polsonelli Law Firm, representing the applicant, and we also have John Felito by video. I'll kick it over to John. Obviously, you're pretty familiar with the technology and having had this come before you previously, so we'll try to be brief. John?
Thank you, Ellen. Yep. Similarly to with the SODAR units, I felt that Carl and the planning staff did a good job of describing the functionality of the unit. As with the other devices, it's been functioning as intended, and we've been collecting data regarding wind speed from it. And I'd like to add again that we certainly derive value from having the unit deployed and receiving the information from it that we do.
Commissioners?
So one of the conditions of the original TBU was to monitor the site for kills of birds, bats, and other protected species. Can you give us a report on how many birds, bats, and other protected species have been discovered? discovered is not the right word, but
Or fortunately,
recovered.
or fortunately not recovered, maybe the better, but yeah. John can go through that.
Yes,
Go ahead, John.
go ahead, Alan.
Well, I was going to say, you don't get into the technology. The good news is they do a lot of things to not get to a situation where we do have a recovery. So that's the number one protection, is the things they do to prevent it. And then John can go through both those and the additional in the process to identify if there was a recovery needed. John?
I can report that we did not receive or discover any bird or animal recovered below the site's location. That's through various methods of monitoring and prevention systems, as Alan mentioned. So the device is monitored remotely for its performance. And typically, if there were to be a strike, we would be able to see an interruption in performance. And then on the front end, precautionarily, we installed the bird and bat diverters and the guy wires to avoid or mitigate the risk of a strike. On top of that, our land team, who works daily in the community and maintains a relationship with the landowner and visits the property. Also, there was nothing that we have recovered from the site.
I have a question for John. How often does that land team go on the ground and look? I mean, rather than just monitoring remotely?
There is not a regular cadence. It's due to the nature of the relationship they have with the landowner, and so there is not a standard cadence there. I do know that they visited the owner, the property owner that hosts the tower, multiple times, but I don't have a specific number of times that the property was visited.
But the property has been visited in and around the tower in the course of the last year while this permit was running?
I do not have direct knowledge if our on-site team or one of the land agents visited the tower in person, but I do know that they've visited the landowner.
I'll hold that for the moment. Any other questions or? Okay. We're going to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone present here who would like to give comment on this item? And anyone online? Go ahead, Sarah.
Melanie Kaufman would like to provide public comment. Melanie, you're in the panel. You can come off mute and provide public comment. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Melanie Kaufman. I live in rural Baldwin City, Kansas. And this, as I brought forward to this commission November 8th, when the other Met Tower was approved, this Met Tower is nearly 200 feet tall. It's missing 3 things in accordance with FAA Advisory Circular AC 77460-1M. And those 3 things I'll summarize now. 1, high visibility guy wire sleeves for daytime visibility. 2, logging the tower in the FAA's digital obstacle file, the DOF. And this is needed to inform all air vehicles, not just crop dusters, as previously approved condition number 15. So I'm worried about private aircraft as well as air ambulances. And then 3, lighting as specified in sections 5 and 6 for poles, towers, and similar skeletal structures. So at least 1 flashing red top-mounted obstruction light for structures exceeding 150 feet should be installed for nighttime visibility according to these guidelines. And so I ask you to amend the previously approved conditions, number 2 for lighting, 15 for communication, and then add marking with the sleeves, even though there are spherical markers and painting on the tower. And this is to prevent human cost accidents. From 2008 to 2018, there were over 40 tower-related accidents, resulting in 36 fatalities, mainly from colliding with the guy wires. And in 2014, there was a court settlement reached for a pilot who ran into a guy wire, lost his life. It was a $6.7 million to his family, and it involved a Met Tower. It was an unfortunate accident, and this is not uncommon. So for the safety and well-being of our Douglas County residents, I respectfully ask that you would consider this. Thanks.
Thank you, Melanie. Do we have anyone else online? Okay. That we're closing public comment, and we give the applicant a chance to respond to public comment.
Yes, absolutely. I can confirm that before deploying the Met Tower, we do run every tower location through an FAA criteria tool to determine what types of notifications or other filings are needed prior to deploying. And it relies heavily on the number of feet AGL that the Met Tower is. So this tower is under 200 feet. It has been determined by our team that no additional filings or light fixtures are required to erect the tower.
Anything to add to that?
No, I think one thing I will say that comes up often because it's below the 200 feet. So people say, oh, that it's done to get away from FAA. That's not the case. There's still, like, as mentioned, there's a whole FAA sub 200 foot process. And in situations where FAA determines that lighting would be needed, it's also required under 200 feet in those conditions, but not otherwise. So as John mentioned, there is still a process that goes with that under 200 feet.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments? I'll start with, I also worked with Carl a little bit on the complaint that was received with the question about, is this impacting wireless internet service? And I heard from folks and said, definitely reach out to, first of all, your internet provider, see if they feel that that is an issue, and reach out to county staff. And sounded like there wasn't really any kind of further substantiated evidence that that was a correlation. I would say that our wireless internet out there could be pretty spotty regardless. So, but I appreciate looking into that and kind of following those trails, because we're always open to the things we do not yet know. I would just comment a little bit on the FAA, and that I do notice that in our approved conditions, it doesn't say anything about, of course, you need to be in compliance with FAA. I believe that this tower is. We've had conversations about all of those pieces of it. I don't think it's a bad idea for us as a county to also have that listed as a condition, because we're not the ones working with the FAA directly. We're going through the applicant for this. Is there any interest, fellow commissioners, or any comment, Carl, on that as a condition? I don't think it would likely change anything.
There is a condition reading all applicable rules and regulations shall be continually followed. If you'd like that to be further clarified, we could specify all applicable rules, including FAA regulations, shall be continually followed.
That's what I was just going to suggest. I thought there was a generic, if you will, phrasing around applicable regulations. So I think it's okay to add including FAA, given the particular facts of this device, I guess.
Just as a courtesy, is that of any issue to
No issue.
applicant? Okay. In terms of the bird monitoring or the on-the-ground monitoring, I would very much like to have heard that, yes, we've had someone on the ground that has been at least several times out there to take a look at the ground, at the area, especially during a spring and fall migration time. I don't think that that's too much to ask either, that we have someone with boots on the ground at least twice, and that also reports back to county staff about what they did or did not find. Is that a condition that fellow commissioners have any interest in seeing added? Or is it just me?
I'd be fine with that. I tend to agree. Visiting sounds like they may have called them on the phone, and we probably want to be a little more clear about that.
Let's say the applicant's house is not especially close to the location of this tower. So,
Yeah, I'm completely okay with clarifying that and making it a little bit more explicit in that particular condition, which is number, I just read it and my brain is now not seeing it, 8.
Okay. So I would also recommend that addition to condition 8. Carl, do you need more guidance to?
So condition 8, I have amended to include FAA regulations, and then we have condition 5 about, condition 4 regarding that the applicant's local designees shall monitor the site for kills of birds, bats, and other protective species. We could add so many times per year onto that, at least twice per year.
Okay, I was looking at last time's recommendations, so I have my numbers off, but yes, I'd say at least twice, and those would occur between either in spring or fall to capture migration timing. Do we have any other thoughts, questions, motions from commissioners? Would you like to respond to?
Oh, no, I think those are fine. There's no problem with that. The only thing I'll add it to the process on when and where we kind of put more biologists or more people to review is in conjunction with our environmental team on where there's higher risk or where there's low risk. And so there's a little part of that, but adding specific is not a problem.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve a temporary business use permit to allow a 60.26 meter metrological evaluation tower on a property generally described as being southeast of the intersection of North 400 Road and East 550 Road for a 3-year period from February 2nd, 2024 to February 2nd, 2027, with the possibility of a 1-year administrative extension with the additional conditions as discussed in this meeting and listed in the staff memo.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That puts us to our legislative update from Little Government Relations.
I'm going to move Stuart Little with Little Government Relations into the panel. Stuart, you're in the panel. You can come off mute and provide your update.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Stuart Little with Little Government Relations in Topeka, and going to provide you an overview of where we are in the legislative session as we're in the 3rd week here, and hit some of the highlights and talk about some of the specific legislation and funding issues that would be of interest to the county. We're moving very quickly. As you all will note from media coverage, there was the passage of a large tax bill from the House and the Senate that was a tax cut package that included a flat tax of 5.25%, a variety of other issues that the legislature has dealt with before, sales tax, exempting Social Security income from tax, raising the residential exemption to $100,000, eliminating the sales tax on food by April 1st. That was sent to the governor. The governor has expressed her opposition to a flat tax, and it is likely that she will veto it sometime within the next week. I think she's got about that much time left. Once that's vetoed, then there'll be some more conversations about a new tax plan, and it's likely that they'll have to make some choices in leadership about whether they want to pursue more flat tax or whether we get into some other tax issues. I suspect we will begin to start having conversations about something that will pass. It is an election year, so everybody does want to pass a tax reduction bill, and there's plenty of revenue, over $5 billion, I think, a couple of years out in state revenue to do something like that. Among some of the policy issues, I would talk through a couple of things. The governor's budget included a proposal for a $40 million pool for local government entities to, with matching funds, go through a process to get resources from that pool to implement homeless projects. In particular, it's emphasizing infrastructure and those kind of things, not operational costs. And it has to get approved by the legislature. It will be in the Department of Aging and Disability Services budget when they begin their budget process in a week or so. So that is that may be the biggest response we'll see to the question of the unhoused in a year when that's a very significant issue in communities across the state. But it needs to be noted that this is the first time we've seen something like this, so it has the potential to be helpful. The governor's tax plan's going to be heard. Hers is a package of tax package that reduces rates. It doesn't have the flat tax in it, has some of the other same components in it. That clearly that won't pass, but that'll be something that'll be a starting point between a flat tax and those other things. There are a couple other tax bills I'd mention. There's a sales tax bill, a CITUS bill that's been introduced that would change where sales tax revenue was collected on a sale, and it would shift the sales tax on a sale to the county of the purchaser. And this has been an issue that comes up about every 10 years and then goes dormant. This excludes motor vehicles, but it has everything else. If it's purchased and for outside of the county, the sales tax revenue would go to the county, and that's going to be something I believe, though there should be a hearing on this. There's some interest in it, but it always it's kind of a perpetual issue. There's a zoning bill that's out and that has some to do with changes of zoning, and it's maybe a reflection of some zoning issues in the Johnson County area. But we've sent it along to get some opinion from your staff about the potential impact. There's a bill that came up last year, a restricted covenant bill, 2376, that removed restrictive covenant language from legal documents and created a process and procedure for that. It passed the House 122 to nothing, I believe, and it's going to have a hearing in the Senate, and it may be something that will pass the Senate as well, and it will be a significant statement in terms of trying to allowing and make it easier to remove some of that restrictive language that exists in old covenants. There are a couple of other things. There's a Good Samaritan law that's been introduced, and it'll receive a hearing tomorrow in the House. And it is designed to provide immunity for someone who's present in an overdose and is administering Narcan or helping before first responders or medical help arrives. And I think at least 30 other states already have a Good Samaritan law that will provide that protection. And there's some good hope that will pass as well as this year, in part because law enforcement is endorsing it and behind it, the associations. There are two EMS bills that one of them had a hearing today. The other one I'll talk about in a second, but some new proposals that came out from the Kansas Emergency Management Department, and looking at making some changes in who, this would be obviously an area for the emergency management folks in the county to weigh in on the specifics of this, as it gets pretty detailed, but it posed in front of the legislature the concept of for weather events, centralizing in on essentially a central designated person who would be the central responding point in an emergency. And I know that generated some interest and even some opposition from emergency management associations. I think some of the conversation in the hearing today talked about some kind of compromise language and other things that might be available. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but the emergency management folks, look at that. The other EMS bill that's coming up it was introduced today, and there should be a hearing relatively quickly. It is a bill that would allow EMS to leave behind over-the-counter medications as needed when they're leaving a scene, whether it's something as innocuous as Tylenol or something as vital as Narcan. But since it is now over-the-counter available, it would be on that list. And that's, again, this along with the Good Samaritan law are a bundle of things that the legislature's taken up to try to address the kind of response to the growing opioid crisis that we're having in the state. Couple of other, maybe one or two more things to mention. Coming back from last year, there was a bill that would have prohibited plastic packaging for restaurants, or would prohibited local governments from banning plastic plastic products that would be used in packaging for fast food and restaurants and those kind of things. The bill passed the House last year. It got stalled in the Senate and did not go anywhere. They're going to come back and take another shot at that bill, see if they can get it out of committee. The governor has vetoed a bill like this before. She's promised she'll veto this again, but it will probably make its way through the process to get back to the governor again, and she'll have to do some response to that. Last couple things, the Crisis Intervention Center rules and regulations that have been of interest to folks, the Crisis Center and those kind of things, and the other facilities around the state. That rules and regs process has, the preparations for that has concluded. There'll be a hearing by the Rules and Regs Committee on February 2nd to get those moving forward. And maybe the last thing I would note, there are a tremendous number of election bills that are coming out, and we're including those in our report so that they can be evaluated by the election officer and see what from their perspective is the most significant. And they may they seem to be on the ball on everything, so they may already have their own list, but that's something that we'll be watching out to see what kind of emerges out of the process and what may be the most risky. I would note that the one bill that would make all local elections partisan that came up in the committee last year, it is back in the House, and it will be having a hearing next week. And so that'll be something else to watch out for and to keep our eyes and ears on. Like a big overview of a lot of things, but I just want to make sure if anybody has any questions about something I omitted or has any follow-up questions, anything I've talked about, be happy to try to answer those.
Do you have any questions? I have one, and it's a bill, it's a House Bill 2541, newly introduced, to look at the Kansas starting a conservation fund to pull down federal match for conservation projects. And I just wouldn't mind having your eyes on that as that conversation unfolds about whether that is something that could help offset some costs for a future Douglas County open space plan.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's the one that had a hearing, I believe, 2 days ago.
Yeah, just Monday.
Yeah, Monday, yeah. Yes, okay, 2 days ago. So yeah, that had a hearing. Obviously, it got caught up in some issues and conversations in the committee as these kinds of legislation does. But I think that there was a kind of a healthy conversation about the benefits of this. So, and there are a lot of folks keeping an eye on this. So I'll make sure we add that to the list and be including it in the report.
Thank you. Anything else, commissioners? Thank you, Stuart, for being present and being on this. We always appreciate your work and have eyes and ears in places that we can't. So thank you for the report.
All right, thank you.
Oh, this is a public comment item. Is anyone here in person who would like to make public comment on this? And anyone online? Thank you for the reminder. All right, with that, we make no action on that other than receive it. And we move on to appointments and Commissioner or miscellaneous, Commissioner and or Administrator miscellaneous.
Commissioners, I don't think you have any appointments ready for you just yet. If you want to go on to miscellaneous, I can give you my update. My weekly memo is attached to the agenda. Did want to update you all on some of the building issues over at the Judicial and Law Enforcement Building. As commissioners know, on Monday the 15th, the sprinkler system pipe burst over the lower level of the JLE above the Division 7 courtroom. We had capped that pipe, and we were in the process of beginning to dry out the lower level with the assistance of restoration services. It impacted Division 7, the court clerk, IT, court services, and district attorney staff that are all on that lower level. Just as we were making progress on that and we returned everybody back to their offices except for the Division 7 staff, Last night, there was a small electrical fire in Division 7 jury deliberation room. One of the fans that was used to help us dry out that room caught fire and spread in the room. It set the sprinkler system off. Lawrence Douglas County Fire Medical responded around just before 11 last night. They accessed the building through a window on the north side and confirmed that the fire was extinguished. There were no injuries. Emergency communications staff continued to dispatch for this call and other calls while the alarm system was going off in the background. Maintenance staff worked overnight to begin drying out the building and ventilating the building. But there is a pretty strong smell of smoke over in the building from what I understand. We've been continuing to work to ventilate the building. There are some things we can do, but sometimes time is just what works best in that space. I do think Division 7 will be out of service for quite some time. Our hope is to get the rest of the departments back into the building as soon as possible, but I do think it's going to be rough for the rest of this week. We today relocated a few members of the court clerk's office into this space here in the commission hearing room, so that, because there's a lot of walk-in traffic for the court clerk, and so that way security could redirect folks over here. So we're glad to have them over here until we can get them back into their space. And I just really want to thank LDCFM for their work on this project, as well as our maintenance staff who just have been really stretched on this issue, and also on top of the cold weather. And I appreciate the flexibility of the departments in the law enforcement center. On my memo, there's just a few things to point out, but I want to make sure commissioners are aware that we're going to schedule our commissioner award luncheon is, I think I have the wrong memo. So hold on, let me make sure I got the right memo. I was like, wait a minute, that looks wrong.
The Employee Service Awards luncheon, you mean?
Yep.
On February 29th, leap year.
I know, isn't that cool?
I'm very excited about leap year.
Right. I'm excited about our award service luncheon too. This is it's a tradition we'd like to keep having for moving forward, and department heads are going to help serve lunch to staff. And so we're real excited about this event. Also wanted to let commissioners know that we're hoping to celebrate National County Government Month for the first time here at Douglas County. So we've got a small internal staff committee working to put together a public event for that, and then maybe some other kind of promotional opportunities for us to talk about all the great work we do here at Douglas County and at counties across the nation. So we are planning for a community event on Tuesday, April 23rd from 4 to 6:30 at the fairgrounds. With the ever popular Touch-A-Truck, which seems to make every toddler happy. But we're going to add some additional things to that as well. So we're excited to announce that date. Also attached to this is the Eudora housing needs analysis that you asked for at the last meeting. So if you have any concerns about that, please let me know. Also, you've got a Panasonic project update attached. And we do not have a work session. Next week, the commission will not meet. We're beginning to put some additional work sessions together for February and March, but I don't have all those lined out yet. That's all I have, commissioners.
Thank you. Any other miscellaneous from commissioners? We'd also like to extend our thanks for all of the county crews, building maintenance that have been working on those issues, but also the court clerk and all of the courts that have had to adjust to this issue with the building. So appreciate everybody's patience with that, and it'll be ongoing for a while. I just had one item to address, and that was I did hear from Sarah that we have several of our funding partners that have not yet turned in their financial information to the county, and just to kind of publicly say how much I value good financial information and prompt financial information. And so if you need any help reaching out to those to say, we really are serious, there's a lot of transparency required with county tax dollars. So with that, do we have any other items? then we are adjourned. Thank you.